68 or 69. And in those days, they did not send the daughters to school. They were afraid that maybe they will disappear. There was a documented case about it, that a girl disappeared and they could not get her back, even though they heard that she's in this cloister, or they shunted her from one place to the other. So she had a private instructor, and the language was only Yiddish. So this is the language she could read and write.
What was school like for you?
School, I started school really when Czechoslovakia came into being in 1918, and I started in 1920 or 21. Actually, they registered me at the age of 7, which is late here in America. They do it 6. School, I never encountered any anti-Semitism in school. Matter of fact, when school started, I was not yet in school, but my older sisters were. And we had to go to school 6 days a week, in other words, on Shabbos too. But of course, nobody showed up because everybody was, from. And every parent got a summons to the police because the children did not attend. But it was explained by the Kehillah, by the Jewish community, or by the head of the Jewish community. This is the way it is. In other words, the custom is stronger than the law, and it was adopted like this. Jews are not going to school on Shabbos, and we didn't. And then they made it so that the Gentiles had their catechism, whatever, lesson, and we were free. It was only later, much later, when I was already out of elementary school, that they had a Jewish teacher who taught religion.
How many Jews were in Barjav when you lived there?
I think about 15,000.
Tell me about your friends.
About
your friends.
My friends? I had a lot of friends in my neighborhood, and then I had a very close friend. She was from a more assimilated family. Her father was a veterinarian, and they came from Austria. And she came to our house, and she saw, just like when my mother was salting the meat, koshering the meat, and she said, my mother does it too, but it was not true. When I came to their house, for the first time I saw how really children live, with all the toys and storybooks and doll houses. And her father made, they said, on a loom, he made a nice
rug?
Yeah, rugs. And he showed me how he does it, how he did the work. And she was a very loyal friend. She knew when my birthdays, we never celebrated birthdays in our house. So the first time I got a present from her. And interestingly enough, she was the one to go to Israel. She had 2 brothers. one was studying in a technical school in Sudetenland. That's also Czechoslovakia on the border of Germany. And I was there once, Shabbos afternoon, and he came home from school from Sudetenland, and the whole family was standing like in, what is the sound of music when you say, and greeted him, and then they had supper, and one played the violin and she played the piano, but I did not partake in the food because it was not kosher, and I felt very uncomfortable. And the grandmother, she was such a nice, like you see in storybooks, with her white hair, with a knot here in the back. And she came outside with me, into the hall. Their hall was as big as this room. And she put a coat on me, and she said, "Wait a minute," and she packed up the dessert, and I put it in my pocket, and outside it was like burning in my pocket. And I put it on, when I came outside, I put it on the fence. Maybe they saw it the next day.
Was your family Hasidic?
Until my father was alive, yes, because both Pinchas and Joseph studied in a yeshiva in Krakow. And my brother Pinchas, he liked to sketch. This is done by him. You see this on the wall. And whatever he saw, he sketched. And once he had an opportunity, he saw a very famous Hirschenberg. I have something what he made. And he watched him how he was doing it. So he had a little sketchbook. But Friday night, he stayed with an uncle. Before Shabbat, everybody changes baths and so on. And the thing fell out of his jacket, and his uncle picked it up, and he saw he sketched people in this was, against the door. He threw it in the fire.
We'll continue on the next tape.
Okay.
Mrs. Katz, we were talking about how rituals were celebrated in your house, and you were telling about your brother and his drawing. You want to continue from there?
Well, just summed it up. He was an artist. He became an artist later. And he went to art school here in America. But his eyesight was bad, and he was a Hebrew teacher in Minneapolis. He was maybe for 40 years teaching in the same school.
Tell me about your next stage of education, your secondary education, and about the goals that you had for yourself.
Well, since I mentioned that my family did not have much money, I could hardly wait to get some education and earn also some money to contribute to the family. And after Bardiov, I left when my sister Olga got married and lived in Bratislava. That's the capital city now in Slovakia. She called first for my sister, who was older, to go to business school, and she stayed with Olga. And here I want to also mention an incident to give you an example what a wonderful democratic country Czechoslovakia was.
What year are we talking about?
This was in the 20s.